Off the Shelf. I'm your host, Yvonne Wolf, and today our special guest is Ken Dermer, playwright of Shushan Incorporated. Let's welcome Ken. Ken, before we get into Shushan, tell us a little bit about the tradition of Purim plays.
Well, Purim plays are as old as the holiday. The name for Purim play is called a spiel, and it's just a retelling of the story in a comical way. In the old days, it was all done by men. Men played all the roles, and they told the basic story of Esther, who became the queen from a beauty contest and was secretly not letting know that she was Jewish. And when the king found out, he foiled the plot of the evil Haman who was going to get rid of all the Jews. And that's the Purim for Dummies version.
That was extremely brief, and I love it. I love it how, well, in many traditions, actors were only men, and women were not proper to be actors, right?
Right.
And how did you get into writing Purim plays? This sounds like a very special niche there.
Well, I've been writing parodies and comedy since I was very young. After my bar mitzvah, I wrote my first song. And I've written all my life. I did stand-up comedy in the early 80s and have always written. In fact, in college, I also did start a screenplay and always have done things to amuse the family. And in 2010, one of my friends at another congregation had stopped doing their Purim spiels, and I said, I can do this. And I wrote and directed and starred in and found out that I needed more help. And so this is the 13th one that we've done, and they've grown. I've had help from professional director, professional musicians, and other people who have helped me grow to the major production that we have today.
I see. So when you were little, did you watch Purim plays?
No, not really. We weren't that observant. I was always into comedy and always into music, but not necessarily into Purim plays. I was into eating Hamantaschen, which is one of the other traditions. So, but that was about it.
Well, before COVID, I remember meeting you a couple of times, and you are quite a kidder. So now, and you've been writing Purim plays, and you say this is the 13th.
Yes.
Edition. So has it been 13 years or longer?
No, it's been 13 years. It's a very great history. We've taken plays. In fact, you might see some of the playbills or posters behind me of previous shows, but we started out with just the basic story and then grew to there. We did one opera, the Megillah, a Schlock opera. Then we did it as a trial. This is the trial of Haman, and all of the cast members signed this one for me. Then we did, the Book of Mormon was hot, so we did the Book of Esther, played off of that. Then we did a little time travel, Purim time. Then we made fun of Little Orphan Annie, and did Little Orphan Esther. Next year we bent the sexes, and instead of having King Ahasuerus, we had Queen Aha. And instead of Esther, we had Chester, and I actually played the king's first wife, or the queen's first husband, who wouldn't dance naked. So they banished that character. Vashti is banished, and I played that character instead of being Queen Vashti. It was King Arthur, and I sang the song King Arthur's parts. Bye Bye Haman was next. Saving Mordecai was our Disney knockoff. Thankfully, we were never sued for that. Young Esther Stein was then our horror genre.
The horror version, yes.
Yeah, and kind of really we don't follow the plot of the movie or the musical that we've knocked off. We only use some of the music from that. And normally when you take a musical, people know 3, 4, 5 of the songs, and there are a bunch of other songs that people are not familiar with. And we found that the best success with the songs in the show is when people know them and recognize them, then they get the most enjoyment out of it. So it's always looking for songs from music in all different genres that people will enjoy. So,
and and pick up on that vibe. I
and pick
see.
up on that vibe. And I'm not a big Western fan.
Oh yes, I think you've done one on westerns, right?
Yep, we did a Western, and so all the songs were Western songs. My favorite song was my parody to the Bonanza theme, which was bananas, the Cartwright family's favorite food. We did that. We did the first two shows that year. That was 2020, and then COVID shut us down. So last year we did something totally different, which was Mcgilligan's Islands. We used one character at a time. Each character was filmed, and then we zoomed that performance. So it was a lot different, and it was a movie directing instead of a stage directing, and so it was a much different thing. But our goal was to keep everybody safe, and we did that. Nobody got sick, and we told the story with all of the characters landing on their own islands instead of one big island.
I see. What a creative endeavor, Ken. You have so many stories to tell. So we'll come back to some of those. You just gave me so many questions to think of. I would love to hear some of these. But so you mean to say that you still only have male actors, or?
Oh, no. It's always we get more women than men.
Yes, and I think that's the truth. Even high school plays now.
Yeah, in theater, it's always easier to get women who will perform than men, and especially ones that are talented. It's getting a cast can be very difficult at times.
Yeah, let's get to that.
Well, this year was especially challenging because of COVID. People were afraid. We started this. I start writing in July or August, finish it at the end sometime in fall. Meet with my music director and make the corrections. We have auditions. We had auditions the first week in December, and
I saw that posting. Yes.
And then we had to have more auditions the third week in December because we didn't have enough characters, enough actors to play the characters. And then once we get all the actors, I do a rewrite so that everybody has something to say and everybody's involved. And
yeah, Ken, do you actually make sure that the music is in the right key for every actor who can sing, or how?
No, I don't. That's what's Howard. So one of the best things about our Forum Spiels is called Howard Pfeiffer. And Howard Pfeiffer is our music director, and he's been for about 7 of the last 8 years or something like that. And Howard is the first guy that people call when a new show comes to town. They bring in their own piano player and conductors and things, and then they call Howard and say, okay, we need some help. Howard is the one who does it. So when we were doing Saving Mordecai, the people from Hamilton said to him, we need you this date. He says, can't, I'm doing Saving Mordecai, but I'll be with you the next weekend. So
you're kidding me. He said no to Hamilton?
He worked Hamilton, but he worked it around our schedule the first year. And that next year when he was working it, he wasn't our music director, but he was our backup. And then the year after that, they closed Hamilton. We kept running, but Hamilton closed. So, but he's done Beautiful and Bye Bye Birdie and a couple hundred other shows. He worked with Marie Osmond. He did the Chipmunks. So a very, very talented man. And that's a good portion of what makes our show a success is the fact that I surround myself with people who are more talented and with more theatrical knowledge than I.
It sounds like he's your secret weapon.
Our secret weapon, but I have Francine Schulman, who's costumed over 100 shows. I have Ron Rude, who's worked many different theaters and done the sound and lights and all of that, the technical. He builds the sets, he does all of that, and it just makes me look good. It makes my job much easier. All I have to do is write the show and then try and get the actors to deliver their lines correctly.
So Ken, it sounds like your Purim plays are built on a solid relationship.
Yep, we've grown to be a small theater company, not just a Temple Spiel. Most Temple Spiels, the actors are reading their scripts and they might have had a rehearsal or two, or
Yeah.
they're just doing it cold, or they're reading something that's prepared by somebody else. And it isn't theater, it's just a funny retelling of the story. And we do major, what I consider major theater for Skokie, um, and tell the story. And we rehearse for 2 months, twice a week. And it's a major undertaking that people have to be committed to, which is the other reason why it's hard to find actors who are willing to do it, especially with the pay that's due for them.
Yeah, sounds like a quite serious production. So you tease us with how funny it is, all these funny parodies, and even teasing with Disney parodies, but it sounds like a real solid production.
Well, thank you. That's what everybody says every year. When we have our first rehearsal, I say 3 things to the cast. Number 1, I want to put on a good show. Number 2, I want to have fun doing it. And number 3, we want to raise money for our congregation while we're doing it. Actually, this year I added number 4 when I realized what we didn't have last year was an audience. I love the feedback. I like to hear people laughing. I like to hear people clapping. And to me, that's the reward. The fact we raise a lot of money for the synagogue is great. To me, the reward is that you hear people having a good time with something that you wrote, something that you created.
Oh, definitely. I think that it's even more important in a comedy than a drama or tragedy, because the comedy, it needs the feedback of the laughter to keep that momentum of fun going.
Absolutely. That's, I hate it when they don't get one of my jokes and I stand up from the middle of the audience and trying to explain it to them, and people start looking at me like, who is this guy?
I can't believe you have to do that. Okay, well, I know you're a kid, Ken. Well, let me ask you a more serious question. Now, most of our guests are local authors, and they've written books and novels and trilogies. How is writing a book different from writing a play?
I'm glad you asked that. A book is something that you write and rewrite, and then you print and publish, and it sits there on the page and somebody has to read it or listen to it, but it is one way. And when you write a play, it keeps changing. It's a living, breathing thing that changes with the actors that you have. In High Noon, we had some very talented actors who thought their characters should say one more line or change the way that a line was said, and it made it funnier. And I love that in my actors, when they can find something that is appropriate and rehearse it and make sure that it becomes part of the fabric of the play. So there's a lot of that rewriting. Howard and I do a lot of changing when something looked at first like it would work, but when we try and have the people sing it, it doesn't fit exactly. So we do a rewrite. So it's constantly growing and changing. And then you got people performing it. So they have to remember their lines. They have to deliver them with the accent on the right syllable. And, and the punchline, and remember the punchlines and the keywords and things like that. So it's never the same. And that's what's cool about theater, is that you can come to one performance and it's going to be different than the next performance.
That's so true. And I think comedy with timing is everything. When you don't have the audience and you don't have people waiting for that punchline, it just doesn't work the same way.
That's very true. And the other thing that we have to work on with the actors is when there's a funny line, wait before you do your line. You have to listen for the audience, and that's a very difficult thing to teach. Some very talented actors, but you still have to learn that comedy timing.
That's incredible. Wow, that is such an art. Well, this year I see you're wearing a shirt with a tie or something. You gotta back up a little.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Here we go.
Can I get a shirt like that?
Oh, sure. Here you go.
Ken, this is some shirt. Wow.
I think purple is your color.
Well, it's really made me stand out today. Now tell us about this comedy. What is the background? This is a business?
Well, Shushan, the story of Purim takes place in Shushan, Persia in the 5th century BCE. We changed it from there to taking place in a company called Shushan Incorporated, which happens to be in Skokie. And in the in the year 2022, and actually the scale of the show goes 2022 to 2024. So the timing of 6 months later this happens, 6 months later that happens. So the same time frame as would happen in the actual story of Purim happens in our show. So it starts in 2022 and ends in 2024.
In the future, that's great.
In the future, yes. And so the company is led by Achashveros, who is the president and owner, and he wants to change his title to king. And he fires one of his employees who wouldn't dance naked. Same basic premise of the details of the story of the Megillah, the story of Esther, and but just set in modern times. Instead of having a beauty contest, we have interviews. And of course, he picks Esther.
That's a great analogy. Ken,
Yes.
You really have an eye for all the metaphors, I guess.
Yes, and so it brings up a bunch of issues, modern issues of anti-Semitism, of racism, of sexism. And so we make light of them, but with making a point. You know, that's the point of parodies, that's the point of satire, is to bring these issues to light while making people laugh.
And speaking of the recent times, what are some COVID-related challenges to putting on your annual play?
That's the toughest part. As I told you, it was difficult to get a cast. All of our audience must be vaxxed and masked. All of our actors are vaxxed and masked. We've been wearing masks for the entire rehearsal schedule up until when we do the final dress rehearsal. We will be wearing masks. We will take them off for the performances, but the audience will be extra far back. There will be more rows between the audience, more space between the audience. And we've had up to 350 people see our previous shows. We'll probably keep our audience to about half of that. We have to set up the chairs and see how many we can get with this increased spacing. So, and the live audience that attends must be vaccinated and wear a mask. Even if the governor changes what the rules are, we're going to keep it for a little while longer just to keep everybody safe.
Yes. Wow. So much to consider. I mean, on top of a live production, everything like that, Ken. Well, I've been to a couple of high school productions during these COVID years. So are you going to use clear masks, or is that good or bad? Or how does that compare with cloth masks for the actors when they're actually performing?
Well, we've gotten the N95s or the KN95s, and also some opera masks and various kinds of masks that allow the actors and singers to sing and breathe a little bit better. The problem with those clear masks, though you can see through them, they're not porous, and so that you can't get air through them. So you might be able to see the actor's mouth, but they won't be able to breathe as well. And they fog up too, which can be an issue. So the clear masks, in my estimation, and what we've decided, are not what we're going to use. We've been rehearsing with KN95s or N95s or the opera masks, and between those, everybody's doing okay. We know that we'll sound better once we remove those masks for the actual performances.
Oh, definitely. I think the first performance I saw in high school where they were wearing masks, I felt like we missed so much of the performance. We hear the voices and we weren't sure who was speaking. It was a very confusing experience for the audience.
We saw a play like that too. Some of our current cast, it was in a play like that, and it was a really good play, a really good musical, but we didn't know who was singing, and there was only so much expression that you can do with just your eyes.
Right. And yeah, so I'm excited for your performance, that it will allow the audience to see the cast expressions in their whole face.
Yep. We'll also be videoing it. We'll have cameras on us so that people can watch us from home. We're going to do performances on Zoom as well as live and in person. so that there will be close-ups and they'll be able to see people.
Wow.
They'll be sitting safely at home. They'll be able to watch from there and see people as if they were as close as you and me.
So that's another layer. You mean you have camera people and zooming in on the facial expressions that makes it much more dynamic than a regular hybrid performance?
Yes, we in the past we've had 2 cameras. This year we're going to have 3, so that we can really get the action and reaction of the actors on stage.
Yeah, okay. Well, I missed that because my program off the shelf usually has 2 to 3 cameras as well. so, so I missed when we go back to our live in-person interviews.
That's what we're all waiting for.
Yeah. So tell us, once you finish your production, do you just turn around and start on 2023?
No, I usually take a vacation in Arizona, and
You deserve one.
and then I start thinking about. I write some different titles down and give myself a little while to decide which direction to go. Usually, that's what I'm doing, and then sometime in July. These last couple of years, the show that we did last year with. I didn't think we were going to do a show at all, so I didn't write that until October. I wrote that show basically in a month, which it's very, very quick.
Yeah.
I do have a day job. I sell
Yeah.
promotional products, imprinted things that people give away. So
Right.
I
Again, this is your creative outlet, right?
yeah, years ago my clients used to let me be very, very creative for them, and with the advent of the internet, they like to go shopping online a lot, and sometimes will call me and sometimes won't. So now with the form spiels, I have a blank piece of paper. Well, I've got the story of Purim in the background, but I get to paint it any way that I want, and it gets to be a lot of fun of how to do it. And it's always it's always interesting in what comes up. And with the help I've had, I should thank Lee Levin, who was that director that we added the second year and directed two or four, I think 4 of the different shows. And he also helped me become a better writer. Instead of writing jokes and then squeezing them into the show, I wrote from where we are and the part of the show and who it is. So whether we were in the Western setting or in the
Yes.
horror setting, where we are, and then right from that point.
Yes,
So,
the thematically has to be compatible to
right,
your message. And how would Western communicate the same
right.
feelings? It would be different vocabulary, perhaps, huh?
Yeah, instead of having a vizier named Haman, we had a sheriff named Haman, who was the evil sheriff Haman.
Well, I'm glad to hear that you're growing every time. You're learning to work with cameras. Are you thinking about making a film version too, Ken?
Well, so yes, I've written a movie about a Purimspiel. So this movie, first of all, the name of the Purimspiel is There's Something About Esther, which was just a funny title, and it's really not set in any time period. It's set in the ancient time period and not anything different, but it's a story about a congregation who's looking to raise big money, and so the rabbi calls one of his old congregants, who will be played by Adam Sandler, just keep my fingers crossed,
Of
and
course.
invites him to come back and star in the Purimspiel, and he plays the evil Haman, and then local girl who didn't know that she had a voice becomes Esther, and Esther and Haman actually have a relationship instead of Esther and the king, and Esther runs off with Haman instead of Esther running off with the king. So it's a unique take on it. And by the way, Esther is going to be played by Idina Menzel.
It's of course adaptation. Adaptation and reinterpret the whole story.
Reinterpret the whole story and tell how they became a couple, and then have them do the show. So.
Yeah. Well, it sounds very promising. Sounds very exciting. And can you tell us what connects you to Clemview?
Well, my sister has lived in Glenview for well over 25 years. And my brother lived out farther north. And so we would always meet halfway in somewhere in Glenview. And actually, so because of that, this last year, my mom needed more assistance. So we moved her into Belmont Village.
Yes.
And that's a good location because it only takes me 10 or 15 minutes to get there. Same thing for my sister. It's a little farther from my brother, but the services there, the people there are exactly what my mom needs. My mom's 95 and
Yeah.
Partly responsible for this sense of humor. So we have to make sure that she's happy, healthy, and cared for. And Belmont Village has done a great job.
Yes, there are many such facilities in Glenview, so many to choose from. And
Yes.
Belmont is very, very excellent maintenance and service staff.
And by the way, one of my parodies this year is talking about all the suburbs of the North Shore. And we are looking around at all of the suburbs, and Glenview is one of those suburbs in one of the songs. So if you want to hear that, you'll have to see the show.
Well, can you invite me every year? I will definitely make it this year.
Thank you.
So Ken, you have so many wonderful tips for us. Tell us, what is your message out there for our writers?
Well, number one is keep writing. I started writing when I was 13 and have written hundreds of parody songs and poems and little skits and things to make people laugh. Keep writing. If you, whatever free time you have, write. You can take classes, which are fun to do that. If you don't have time to write full novels and things like that, keep a journal and write little bits, whatever you can, and then write some more. You can take what you have and combine it and divide it, and you'll find different things in there. And I wake up in the middle of the night, I think of funny things, I write them on a piece of paper, and I stick them in a drawer in the bathroom. My wife goes, "What are you doing?" I said, "Writing." So you always keep writing, and then you never know where it turns into.
Wow, Ken, that is wonderful. Thank you for sharing your humor with us today off the shelf.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you inviting me. This has been a lot of fun.
And thank you for watching. Join us next time on Off the Shelf.